Well, here we are once again. We're back in the house. We've got the rig all built up. We've got everything loaded. We're going to do some testing and show you how awesome this system really is. Stick around. This ought to be interesting. Okay, well, last week you saw the build. If you've been following along with this latest run of videos, we got the build all put together, got it working really well, and then we started doing some testing with it to see just how stable this particular system is. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh yeah, crank it up to 5 gigahertz, this thing will run fine all day long. For some reason, I wasn't quite so lucky in that regard, and I don't know why. It just doesn't make any sense, because I ran at 5 gigahertz, and yeah, it runs fine, but it runs really warm. I mean, we're talking into the 90s, so we were getting some thermal throttling issues going on. So I'm going, what the heck is going on? So while I was over at Crash Override's place, we decided to, we took the CPU block off, we cleaned off the thermal compound that was pre-applied, put on a nice coating of some aftermarket compound. I believe we used the Arctic Silver for that. And, got a nice good seal, sat it on there, tightened it down, finger tight, like you're supposed to do. And then we tested it again. And for some reason, 5 gigahertz is just kind of out of my realm. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if it's the airflow or if it's my cooling solution. The cooling solution really shouldn't be an issue. Like you saw in the build video, I am running an H100i V2. I'm running it in balanced mode. I'm not running performance, because if I leave it in performance, when I go to bed at night, it's going to sound like a jet turbines in here. And so what I did was we played around and we saw how it did at stock. We went to a 4.6 turbo, tried it there. It was doing fine. We tried a 4.7 turbo, still ran fine. The highest it was getting was into the 80s. It didn't really crack 90. So we left the turbo at 4.7, brought the base up to 4.4, and just called it a day. So that's where it's at. So I'm not running 4.7 to 5.0. I'm just running 4.4 to 4.7, and it runs absolutely fine. So if you have an identical system to this and you're putting in an S340, you can pretty much expect the same kind of temperature fluctuations, same kind of temperature variations, because from what I've been reading online, the 7700K by all accounts does run warm. It does. It's just the way it is. I don't know if there's anything that's going to be done to improve upon that later on or not. This is what I bought, this is what I built, and this is the way it is. So there you go. So what I did was I ran some non-gaming benchmarks and I ran some gaming benchmarks to see which one does which. So what I did was I ran Cinebench, I ran 7-Zip, I ran User Benchmark, and then we're going to do some gaming benchmarks. So let's go ahead and look at those, and I'll show you how they did. I'm going to have the camera pointing over at the big screen over here, because this is what I use for everything. I don't have a 1440p monitor or 4K yet, so unless you want to donate one, that's what I got for right now. Not really going to be changing very much soon. So what you're going to be seeing is a lot of 1080p stuff. And in a lot of the games that I run, it knows it's 1080p. It locks, that's the highest it's going to go. So that's what I'll be showing you today. So let's go ahead and get to it. I'll show you how those ran. Okay, so we're going to run some tests. This is the Cinebench R15 test. Now this is a test that you can download for free, and it's one that you can run for both OpenGL and CPU tests. So we're going to run the OpenGL test right now, just to show you how that runs. And of course, this being a GTX 1070, of course it's going to run pretty smoothly, but I just want you to see just how well this actually does run. Now, of course, if you want higher resolution, you can get a GTX 1080. They are coming down in price. Right now, you can get them for around $500-ish. So, yeah, if you're looking to upgrade and you don't already have a 10 series card, you can go either with a 1070 or a 1080, depending on your budget. The 1070 that I picked up was $469 back in last month. I'm sure that's gone down a little bit by now, and you don't have to get the For the Win 2 card. Now here we got FPS score of 158.97. Now keep in mind that this is overclocked on the processor, but this is mainly running on the graphics side. So let's run the CPU test and let's see how this runs, because this mainly is going to task up the CPU to show how well that renders. Now granted, if you're going to be doing a lot of rendering, you probably aren't going to be happy with an i7, even with a 7700K. If you're going to be doing any kind of high quality rendering, you probably want something like a Ryzen 5 or a Ryzen 7 because of the multiple cores. It's got more threads, it's a bigger workhouse, and it's going to run this kind of render a whole lot faster than what the 7700K is going to do. But I'm including these here just to kind of show you what my system does on this kind of a test. So it's just about done, and we got a 1012 Cinebench score. Now I'm running this a number of times, and I'm getting anywhere from 1003 to 1012 to 1014, but this is what this shows up to be. So we'll go ahead and close that out. Go ahead and save our benchmark scores. Okay, so we're going to run the user benchmark test, and one thing I have found with user benchmark, at least on my system, if you have MSI Afterburner running already, you might want to close it before you run this, because I've had this user benchmark close on me unexpectedly when it's in the middle of the test. It won't complete all the way through. It'll abort out and it won't give you the full readout, the full results of how this runs. So it's doing a bunch of tests. It's doing a 4-core. It's going to do the 8-core, 32-core. And it does a whole bunch of different metrics to measure what your system does. So let's see what we come up with. And it's gathering drive info. Keeping in mind this is running with a SSD and then a hard drive. So hard drive 7200 RPM. So it's not bad. I mean, I'm sure there are ones that do better, but this is what I've chosen. So let's bring into the 4K test. Now granted, this system really isn't much for 4K, especially with the graphics card I've chosen. So we're going to run through. And pretty soon you'll start coming up with the graphics ones. So those will be a little bit showier. They'll be showing more of how the graphics are processed. I've run this a few times, but unfortunately with my video editing program, I can't really get the HTML page to show up too well in the self. And of course you see NVIDIA doing their little overlay on top on some of this. I'm not quite sure how to get rid of that. If anybody knows how, just drop it in the comments and let me know how to get rid of that little prompt. Doing the particle tests, the swarm. Now it's going to do the galaxy test. It's going to show that, and then it's going to do what I call the beauty shot. I mean, that's just really gorgeous. I like that. Okay, so it's calculating it out, and what we have, get that out of the way, we've got a gaming score of 102%. This is a UFO for gaming, of course. I mean, come on, what do you expect? It's a 7700K, it's meant for gaming. For desktop, it's at 90%. It's an aircraft carrier. Workstation is 73%. It doesn't have the most cores, and that's more for what Ryzen's for. It's performing in the 55th percentile. Graphics is 107%. It's the beast. I love the way User Benchmark gives these definitions, and I gotta give a shout out to Tech Deals for showing this particular test metric that you can use with this program, because these people who did User Benchmark have a real awkward sense of humor, I guess. So that's how that shows up. Let's do, what do we do? We'll do the 7-zip test. How about that? We'll do the 7-zip. So we'll benchmark that. And it comes up with, now if you can see that or not, compressing, the resulting is 30,176 and the current is 30,182 MIPS, whatever MIPS are. If you know, then you know more than I do. Decompressing, that's 27,000, and then the current is 26,068. So those are the scores on how that ran. And we'll go ahead and open up CPU-Z. And we'll run that test. Now, as you can see, this is, of course, there's the stock there. I have this. Now, of course, on this CPU-Z test, you'll see that it is specifying that it is a 7700K. And like I've said previously, I do have this running currently at a base of 4.4 and a overclock of, well, boost of 4.7. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the bench. We're going to bench this. See how this runs. So the single thread runs 2315 and the multi-thread is at, it's over 10,000, so 10,537. So if you compare this to what a normal 7700K is, the result is very, very minuscule on the single thread, but when you do the multi-thread on the overclock, you see how the stock is 9993, and with what I have it set at is at 10,537. And you can stress this too. Now, of course, now when I hit stress this, I'm going to go back to here. You'll try running the stress test. Go back and you'll see that it is running at the turbo that I have set for it, which is 47, well, basically 4.7 gigahertz. It's staying right about there. And there's a real good reason why I'm not pushing 5.0 all the time. This is my daily driver. This isn't something I just use for benchmarking, that I just use to show off what this does. This is pretty much my daily driver. So for me, without cracking the thermal ceiling, without trying to go above 90 degrees, and I don't know why, it runs at 4.7 boost stable. So that is how everything ran with the non-gaming and the gaming benchmarks. Unfortunately, like, I couldn't do the Rise of the Tomb Raider because Fraps just wasn't cooperating. I couldn't do Doom like I wanted to because Fraps wasn't cooperating there either. But anyway, the reasonably priced system, reasonably built, is going to do fine just there. It's going to do just fine there. So thank you for coming by and seeing how all this turned out. Like I said, I am very happy with it. I am going to be doing some additional little tweaking here and there because I realized that when I bought the power supply, I didn't look quite closely, and as you'll notice, the cables have a little bit different color in there, so I'm going to be fixing that. Gonna get probably get some custom cable extensions from Cable Mod and just kind of throw those in there just to make it look a little bit better, so forgive me for that. But otherwise it runs just fine. I did take care of the beacon. Remember in the build video where, when I showed you the glamour shots at the end of the last video where I had that really blinding red light? Do you see it there now? No, I didn't dig it out, so put your knives away. Stop carving at your motherboard. Come on, please. No, all I did was I just took a little piece of electrical tape and just did a little low-tech fix and just kind of covered it up. So now it doesn't ruin the lighting aesthetic that's inside. The only thing that I kind of noticed after running this for a while, the thing that throws off the most light is the graphics card. I would have thought that the motherboard would have had a little bit more RGB into it. It's just got it over the bottom heatsink there, but you know it's fine. You know it throws off enough light. In fact, I'll probably run some LED strips around it just because it has an RGB header on the bottom, just because reasons. So hey, what the heck? Make a nice light blue. This is the midnight rig, so that's why I've got everything blue. I've got the motherboard throwing blue, I've got the EVGA throwing blue, I've got the Corsair throwing blue. So yeah, it's all blue all over the place. I love it. It's perfect. It does what I want it to do. So, what did you guys think of how this performed? Did you think it did well? Did you think it could have done better? Was there anything you could possibly suggest that would make this even better than what it is now? Have any thoughts? You know where they go. Down in the comments. As always, if you like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up. It's right over there. If you want to go ahead and subscribe and you haven't already, there's that button right over there. It says subscribe. Just go ahead and click on that and boom! You're part of the audience. Welcome to the house. So until next time, I just always say, as I always do, be yourself, be original, be a little random, and learn something new every day because you should. And you never know when you're going to learn something new because something unexpected may always happen. Catch you in the next time.